Welcome to the Vibrantly You podcast. We're your hosts, Megan Martineau
and Caitlin Cipriano. In this podcast, we talk about fitness and nutrition on your motherhood journey. Whether you are trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, or beyond, you are welcome here.
Nothing is off limits, and our goal is to support you in this important season of life so that you can feel vibrantly you. As a reminder, this information is not medical advice. Please see the show notes for more details.
Hello and welcome back to the Vibrantly You podcast. Today we are going on another solo episode journey together. This is Caitlin, your perinatal nutritionist, and we are going to be talking about the journey from when you read those 2 lines telling you positive you are pregnant all the way through to postpartum with your nutrition. So we're going to go all along the continuum today and the shifts that happen as far as nutrition goes, because you've probably seen or received a lot of really generic advice like just eat healthy or eat for 2, take a prenatal and you will be fine. But we can know from certainty from the literature that your body is doing something incredibly complex during this time. And so your nutritional needs are not a static throughout pregnancy and postpartum. There are really notable shifts that happen from trimester to trimester, and then again after your baby arrives. And so today we're going to really walk through how your body looks in each of these trimesters, what shifts are happening, why nourishing intentionally is important, and also the period that gets really forgotten. We're going to talk about postpartum recovery. So this is going to definitely be information dense. If you're listening to this on the go, I would try to take some mental notes, but if you're at home and you want to take some notes too, you may find that helpful. But my goal today isn't to overwhelm you with data and numbers. I really want you to understand what your body is asking of you, and how you can nourish yourself with confidence and less pressure. Okay, so let's start off with the first trimester. So as maybe you're experiencing right now or experienced before or have just heard from other moms, the first trimester can really feel like a whirlwind, like survival mode. Your hormones are really rapidly rising. During this time, you're going to be also experiencing an increase in blood volume, and your body is really laying the foundation for the placenta and your baby's development. So there's a lot going on. And I think for many moms, the first trimester is really where food feels the hardest. And understandably so. There are a lot of nausea, food aversions, fatigue, the idea of just like eating, not even perfectly, but eating consistently just feels really unrealistic. And I want to reassure you that that's okay. The first trimester is really about needing your basic needs and that early development. And so if you're having moments where you're like, I'm doing okay right now, like including more nutritious foods in this meal feels doable, those are the moments that I want you to focus on and pay attention to, not the ones where you're hanging on for dear life. So some nutrients that we want to try to incorporate during this time when possible is folate. This is really critical for the neural tube development, which happens very early in pregnancy. We also want to pay attention to vitamin B6, both for baby's development and also for managing nausea. This is actually a supplement that you can utilize to help with nausea and vomiting. So check with your provider if this is something that you're struggling with. You don't need to white knuckle this alone. Ask your provider what options might be best if you feel like you're really struggling with the nausea and vomiting. Another nutrient, though, that I think it's overlooked but is incredibly important for brain development is choline. And so choline, specifically the most dense, is going to be in eggs, which I know can be a really big aversion for some people. But yeah, if you're having a meal where you're like, yeah, I can tolerate some eggs, that's one thing I always recommend during first trimester to my clients. Another key nutrient here in the first trimester is iron. Your body is really beginning to prepare for that shift in the increase of blood volume that happens. And so this is a key nutrient here. You can get this from both animal sources, which is our hemi iron, and plant-based sources, which is our non-hemi iron. Both are great to incorporate if you are going to be, incorporating those plant-based sources or that non-hemi iron. Trying to pair with a vitamin C source will help increase the amount that is absorbed. But again, specific nutrients aside, something I want to make sure that I do say here is that if you're feeling like you're surviving on toast and crackers, you're not failing here. This is just a common sentiment of the first trimester. And so please do the best you can. Your body is hugely adjusting right now. And I know that this stage is not easy, but the literature does say the height of this is weeks 6 through 10. Of course, sometimes it could be outside of those windows. Of course, there are cases where people deal with more significant nausea and vomiting that lasts their whole pregnancies. And so in those situations, obviously there's individuality that takes place and support that is needed. But for a large percentage of people, this is a short period of time. And so give yourself that perspective shift to say that in the grand scheme of things, the peak of this is about a month. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to focus on likely smaller meals, more simple foods, and staying hydrated here in this first trimester. If you are struggling with nausea and food aversions, we do have a specific episode on navigating that. I will link it in the show notes for you because I don't have that document up to tell you what episode number that is, but I will put it in the show notes in case you'd like to go back and look at that more specifically. Okay, so moving on here to our second trimester. A lot of times it feels easy. It starts to feel easy. Right? A lot of times your nausea improves and your energy levels kind of come back to what are more normal for you. And nutritionally, this is where the baby's growth really does start to pick up. Your body is allowing the baby to grow bone and muscle and organs, and the placenta continues developing. And so one of the shifts that we need to start to make because of this is protein needs. Once you're starting to feel better out of that first trimester survival mode, if you can try to intentionally prioritize protein, it does make a big difference because it's going to support your maternal tissue changes alongside the fetal growth too. And so in pretty recent literature, I think around 2021, maybe 2022, there were some journal articles that came out that did state the protein needs are higher than originally anticipated. This personally doesn't shock me based on where our research and literature lies in maternal health, in particular maternal health nutrition. So we do, in general, the literature says as we start to get into the later pieces of pregnancy, like upwards of 1.9, maybe even higher, if my memory is serving me correctly, of grams per kilogram of body weight. And so more simply, if you are a person that is averaging around 150 pounds, that would look like somewhere between 80 to 100 grams of protein daily. So you can plus or minus that, according to what your pre-pregnancy weight looks like. But this is, again, the stage where trying to prioritize protein sources is really helpful alongside iron, again, because this is when that blood volume continues to increase. And by the end of pregnancy, your total blood volume does increase by about 40 to 50%, which is just huge. It's crazy. And so that protein and iron intake is really important. And then a couple other things that can be really helpful to pay attention to are calcium for bone development, and then magnesium for the muscle function. This can really help reduce cramping. A lot of people will complain about cramping or being woken up Charlie horses in the middle of the night. And so incorporating magnesium through your foods first. And then I think I mentioned this in my most recent episode on supplements during pregnancy, that sometimes this is something that we do need to supplement with additionally. And so you can talk to your provider about that if that's appropriate for you. I will link that episode as well in the show notes. And then lastly, the last nutrient, micronutrient that I want to talk about are omega-3 fats, particularly DHA, but also EPA too. These play a really important role in the baby's brain and eye development. And so trying to incorporate things like fish once or twice a week can be really awesome. Low mercury choices that you like can be awesome. And if you aren't doing that or are not able to do that regularly, this is potentially another supplement that you may want to include too. So again, check out that episode about supplements during pregnancy, and you can check with your provider if either magnesium and or omega may be helpful for you. But because people are feeling generally better in the second trimester, it's a really good time to prioritize on these more balanced meals that include protein and healthy fats and fiber, because they are going to really help stabilize your energy and support your baby's growth. As we move into the third trimester, this is like where your belly is really growing. The baby's growth really accelerates. Your baby's gaining fat stores. Their brain's really rapidly developing, and the organs are maturing. And at this stage, this is where your nutritional needs are at the highest. And so when we talk about a caloric perspective along these trimesters, the first trimester, you really don't need any change. would eat at like a maintenance level of calories. And then as you do start to get towards the end of the second trimester and into the third trimester, we do want to increase your calories. Literature averages from what I've seen most recently are somewhere between 300 to 500 additional calories for most women. But not only are these calories important, the nutrient density of your food is important here too. And so again, we're going to ride the iron train and focusing on this both for delivery and for your baby's first months of life. Low iron or iron deficiency during pregnancy is incredibly common, which is why I'm talking about it so much here in this episode. But it can contribute to like fatigue, dizziness, and it's just something that your provider is going to check your iron levels a couple of times during your pregnancy to make sure that they're adequate, and that is for, a reason. So it's why I wanted to bring it up several times today. And lastly, protein continues to be important. Like the protein demands as you get towards the end of pregnancy have also increased. And again, the DHA for supporting brain development also continues to increase during this third trimester. So some continuing themes here from the second to the third trimester with those. And then lastly, I just want to talk about hydration and electrolytes in this third trimester because that blood volume has increased. This is when we start to see things like swelling, and proper hydration can really support circulation and energy levels. For most people, again, I'm generalizing here, but somewhere around like 100 to 125 ounces during pregnancy is going to be pretty appropriate for a lot of people. Again, if you want your personal amounts, then please, reach out to your provider and see okay, what do I really need to be getting for myself here? And in this third trimester too, like we talked about in the first trimester, those smaller, more frequent meals do tend to feel a lot better at this stage because the baby is taking up more space. So you may experience things like, oh my gosh, I am so freaking hungry. I could eat a massive meal, but then you get going into it and you're like, you've eaten a quarter of the plate and you're like, yeah, I'm full. I'm full. So those smaller, more frequent meals split up can be really helpful. You may find that doing things that feel more like snacks or just splitting a meal in half and just eating half of your lunch, for example, at 11 and then the other half at 2. But if you are doing these more smaller, frequent meals, do not forget to make sure that there are nutrient density in them, even though they're smaller and more frequent. Okay. Whew. I feel like we're on a whirlwind here, but we are going to take a moment and talk about this postpartum stage because we are all hyped up during pregnancy, and then the baby comes, and of course you're giving so much love and attention to the baby that most moms forget about taking care of themselves, and we get lost in this equation. But you matter, and your body's just done something extraordinary, and you are recovering, you're navigating sleep deprivation, you're potentially breastfeeding, which also increases the nutritional needs even more. And so postpartum nutrition does need to focus on this recovery and replenishment. And we need to have that in the conversation for moms. And so, to maybe no surprise with this episode, iron is really important here, especially if you did experience any blood loss during birth. But we are going to want to focus on rebuilding iron stores. If you don't have a cast iron pan, this can be hugely helpful to cook meals in. It's one of the only times we want a metal to leach into our food, but this can be really great. Again, protein is really helpful for tissue repair and rebuilding strength. So trying to prioritize that in your meals is great. Again, healthy fats for brain health and mood support. There are some studies that do connect having nutrition with less inflammatory foods does support potential mood changes, perinatal mood disorders during this time period. So incorporating healthy fats is a great way to do this. And then if you are breastfeeding, in particularly some micronutrients that can be key are choline and iodine. And then honestly, just like one of the most overlooked things is just like eating regular meals and getting adequate calories. You do not need to be, surviving on air and coffee over there, right? And you don't need to bounce back after birth either. Your body needs nourishment during postpartum, not restriction. This is a stage that is all about healing, stabilizing your energy, and supporting your mental health. I want to wrap up this episode today to just talk about a few key takeaways. You don't need perfection during pregnancy, during postpartum. Your body's going through so many changes. We just need consistent nourishment that feels flexible, that allows you to offer yourself compassion. We're not talking about like rigid food rules here. We're talking about creating life and also caring for yourself as your body does that incredible role. If you found this episode helpful today, I would love that you share it with another mom who might need some of these reminders and information. And if you're looking for some more support here with pregnancy or postpartum nutrition, I do have some ebook resources that I will link in the show notes. This was an overview, of course, so if you have specific questions, please feel free to DM me on Instagram at Wholesome Huntress Nutrition. Thank you so much for being here today. We will see you next week.